Asat Pramad, the villain of Planarcadia and the demon lord from beyond the sky. A masked fool turned trailblazer turned omen vanguard turned lord ravager. Yes, this guy has been around for so long that he predates the aeon he is an emanator of. And he is now the culmination of everything he was turned into this twisted abomination that he is now. However, this is all by his own will, and this story proves that the cosmos is a cruel place for people who wish to be heroes. Because there is a reason why he has a genuine admiration for Himiko, and there is a reason why he is so devoted to destruction now. And while this may all sound like a contradiction, this all lines up and is the reason why he said long ago that Elation has been dead for a long time. Because in this video, I'll be explaining the full story of en route, IC, and Asat Pramad, all while uncovering the secrets of how this masked fool became the being that he is today. So without further ado, this is the full story of Asat Pramad revealed. Okay, so the only way to properly understand the most complicated Lord Ravager that we have ever faced is to start from the beginning, and that would be en route, Asat Pramad's masked fool name. Now, not many concrete facts are known about en route, but from what we do know, he was a charismatic individual who was most commonly found in the tavern. And in fact, he was the most notorious fool in the tavern, with his most notable feature being these ever-stride boots that would always teleport him into places he's not welcome in. How he got his hands on these shoes, we may never know, but at some point he happened to end up in a situation where he was fighting Ouroboros. And according to his story, he tricked them into eating a star and they eventually died. But let's be honest here, odds are due to Aha stealing the concept of taste from the veracity, the Aeon was just eating things indiscriminately and ended up ending themselves due to poisoning or something along the lines of that. Because eating a star would be nothing to an Aeon that routinely eats celestial bodies. Remember, the swarm was just an appetizer to Ouroboros.
Rumor has it, they were last seen during the era of the swarm disaster. They were hardly there to aid the swarm, but rather to attend a cosmic level feast, in which the swarm served merely as appetizers, and the planets they passed were devoured as the main course.
Eating a star would be nothing to this thing. So quite understandably, it is unknown how Ouroboros exactly died, and as far as en route goes, there are many stories that have him and the spotlight of taking on Ouroboros or successfully pranking them. But either way, en route's connection to the veracity will come into play later, with Ashvale of course. Because after enjoying his time at the tavern and being something of a celebrity among the masked fools, he came to a harsh realization which led to him leaving the tavern and the Elation for good. And the reason for him leaving can be understood through his last joke to his friend Braggy, who was a bartender at the tavern. And the joke reads,
"Just look at the tavern. The universe is dying outside, yet everyone stays safe and sound by hiding in here. Elation should have been something magnificent, but these fools refuse to pay the cost that comes with the joke. Behind their laughter, all I can see is the decay and rot of the second prosperity."
And it's through this that we can get a better understanding of the phrase, Elation has been dead for a long time. Because what this means is that he laments that the path of Elation does absolutely nothing to stop the pain occurring throughout the cosmos. And he's right. Elation is a path of coping. Looking into the void and laughing isn't a way of stopping the void from consuming the universe. It is a way to cope with the existential dread. This path borders on nihility because both paths acknowledge that the end is unavoidable. But instead of viewing life as pointless because of this inevitability, you enjoy all that is before all is gone. But in this moment, en route reveals that he either never really understood the elation or wanted something different for elation. And because of this, he left the tavern in search for the world's end. Because if he can find it and prevent it, he will have solved the problem of the universe dying and becoming this magnificent thing that he wanted for the elation. And I say wanting to stop the world's end because he clearly wanted to stop the suffering in the world. So stopping the world's end would be his purpose at this current point in his life. But another way that you can see this is thinking of the world's end as the prime mover of life, where everything in the universe originates from, with that one thing not having an origin in itself. Something that Xandar thought was the destruction, but in reality was the trailblaze. But en route being better than Xandar, since the masked fools are always one step ahead of the game, he figured it out for himself and joined the trailblaze. And this begins his story as Icy. And Icy was pretty much what you would expect of a masked fool who joined the Nameless, and to be honest, he almost didn't make the cut. Dolly, with a Y, the navigator at the time, only let him join out of the kindness of her heart. And also, she looks like a pure child of an Asarva, and her other alias was Crystal, so precursor to some future March 7th lore? Maybe, maybe not. But going back to Icy, this guy was able to join the Nameless, who at the time were a much bigger faction. In fact, at the time he joined the Nameless, they were a massive faction following in Akavili's footsteps. Yes, at this time Akavili was very much alive and present with the Astral Express crew. And during this time, IC would ask Akavili, why is it that I seek answers yet all I find is a life full of questions? And Akavili would simply point to the boundless unknown in response. So we know at this time he was still troubled, but trusted in Akavili to point him to the answer. But our story continues with their fall, an event that IC witnessed personally, and it messed him up badly. Because with the fall of the Aeon of the Trailblaze, he figured that Akavili didn't even know what the answer to his question was. And this broke him, because with tears in his eyes, he wondered what this was all for. The Trailblaze is nothing but a journey to nowhere, all for nothing that never ends. A sick joke. It also didn't help that every time he saved a world, he would look back at it and they will have corrupted themselves anyway. But civilization and humanity being tainted is something he'll log for later. So at this point, he witnessed two Aeons fall, the Veracity and the Trailblaze. And shortly after, the navigator Dolly went through an irreversible anomalous crystallization, more proof of her being a child of an Asarva. She literally March 7th herself, and she had pink hair, but anyway, she passed down her title, and the Nameless proceeded to fight over who would be the next navigator. And it was ugly. Some decided to leave altogether, some got murdered by their own companions, and some tried to disable the train's engine and also steal it. It was a mess until Icy took charge. We don't know exactly how, but he did. Most likely also due to him always being where he isn't welcome. A fool is running the train now. But this begins Icy's spiral into destruction. Because when he took command of the Express crew, he did what all fools would do in this situation. He made a game of it, but a sick game. Because what he would do is that he would roll a die to dole out missions depending on how the die landed. And these missions were dangerous and perilous, to say the very least. So fewer and fewer Nameless came back on these missions, and those who broke the rules most likely got killed for it. And the reason why I think Icy did this wasn't to be evil, but to purge the Nameless. Because as we know now, Icy has a soft spot for genuine Nameless, and all others are of little value to him.
But now, things have changed. Someone far more interesting than you has returned. And unlike you, she is the real deal. A genuine Nameless.
So if they died, they died. But thinking back to how the Nameless of that time were, they left the Trailblaze, they murdered each other, and tried to break the Express. I kinda get why he wanted to purge the entire faction. I get what he was trying to do. His methods are cruel, but he got results. His Nameless were in order by the end of his reign, and he passed down the title of Navigator in turn, with his successor thanking him for leading the Nameless through the darkest days of the Trailblaze path. But this really speaks to his conflicted nature here, because even though he was struggling with coming to grips with the path of the Trailblaze being a sick joke to him that has no answers for his questions, he still led the faction and kept it in order in his own way, and probably the best way he knew how. But in the end, he had his fill and he said his goodbyes, just as he did with the Masked Fools. Now, his time with the Omen Vanguards is merely implied and almost entirely unknown, but judging by the pattern of this guy's life, we kinda get why he wanted to look into the finality for answers. If the elation won't save anything and the Trailblaze is a journey to nowhere, why not look into the finality? The path that is utterly dedicated to saving the universe. But this didn't work either, and I think we can understand why. Because even though we don't know exactly what Icy did as a finality follower, we do have some info on the Omen Vanguards. And this comes from a curio called the Talent Doll. And long story short, this doll factory got a prophecy from the Omen Vanguards that they should destroy their latest batch of manufactured toys, but not knowing why and having understandable trust issues, they didn't listen, and lo and behold, the new batch was filled with enemies that then took them over with the old Trojan horse strategy. So, judging by how Icy's life seems to go, this most likely happened to him multiple times. He tells people how to avoid death, they don't listen, and they die anyway. So, most likely his time with the finality was short-lived. But not only because of that, but because there was a new Aeon on the block. Nanook, the Aeon he himself witnessed ascend either as a navigator or as a part of the Omen Vanguard. I can't tell which one, but it's around that time. Late into his Nameless days or in his finality days. The Ashvale Veracity Shadow thing also seems to have happened around this time as well. But either way, he joined the destruction, the path of purging. The elation failed him, the Trailblaze led him astray, the finality let him down, and now he turns to the only success he's ever had in his life: purging. Because, and this is just speculating here, the only thing he has ever done that has worked was purging the Nameless with his cruel missions. Using his ring with a die in it, he was able to set this imploding faction back in order. So he put his trust in Nanook, the Aeon dedicated to purging the cosmos of its impurities, seeing civilization and humanity as a whole as tainted, something Icy would also be very familiar with. And this is where en route turned Icy would become the Lord Ravager Asat Pramad, with the die becoming his head and his ability to work probability taken from the finality. His past is infused with his Lord Ravager form, taking on the duty of destroying the path that set him on this journey in the first place, elation, but still having appreciation for the Nameless and a reverence for Akavili, but viewing this path as a trap. So he tells his daughter Graphia to stay away from it, warning her that it will give her ideas.
You were doing so well, right up until you saw that express crash. It gave you ideas, Graphia. Unrealistic, foolish ideas.
Ideas that sound good, but lead to nothing, because they led him nowhere. He saw Akavili die with his own eyes. Now he finds himself faced with the fools, the trailblazers, the finality followers, and on top of that, the guy he gave the Veracity Shadow to. Ashvale. Even March, representing Dolly, if she was a child of remembrance, is all here. We are not the protagonist of this story, because what Planarcadia is representing for Asat Pramad is everything he has experienced and left behind. Everything he's wanted so badly to purge from the cosmos, from en route to icy to Asat Pramad. This guy has been searching for the prime mover of life in the world's end, and now he believes that he has found it, the destruction. The same conclusion that Xandar came to, the only difference being that he found it in reverse order. Xandar thought it was destruction, but then realized later on that it was the Trailblaze. And Asat Pramad knew it was the Trailblaze, but witnessed Akavili's fall, and that shattered his faith in the truth, leaving nothing but destruction. And now he aims to cause the world's end that he wished to avoid, all while having this deep-rooted, conflicted feeling for admiring a true and genuine Nameless, who he has acknowledged is Himiko. So in order to prove himself right once and for all, he has to kill her, which is why he returned to Planarcadia in the first place. This beef is not personal. Asat Pramad is fighting the embodiments of his past in so many ways, and when he says praise Akavili, he means it. He loved Akavili, but they're gone. He watched them die, and now all that is left is destruction. Purging, the only thing that has ever worked for him. Because this is the full story of Asat Pramad revealed. This video took a bit of research, but when I sat back and put it all together, it all made so much sense that it just had to be my next video. More than just a goofy dice head hat man, huh? This guy has an incredible story, and this is the culmination of so many things in his long life. But even though he has a legitimate reason for thinking what he does and following the path of destruction, he's wrong. And we have to show him why, just like we did with Xandar. The world can't reach its end, and we and our friends are here to prevent it. This is more than a battle of brute strength like it was with Iron Tomb. This is a battle of ideals and ideologies. Asat Pramad is a totally different threat, and I'm so hyped to see what 4.4 will bring. What do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.